Good morning to you guys. I have a special surprise for you today. We are going to talk about relationships and how relationships help your health. We are social creatures, and if your relationship is struggling, then your health is going to struggle. It's not just about the food that you eat, it's not just about your self-care, it's also about what you put out energetically and accept in energetically. So today, we're going to talk with Kim DeSilva. And we're going to talk a little bit about relationships and hear what she has to say. She is a mom that helps you bring romance and spark back to your relationship. And it really starts to feel like when you first started dating. Her clients are all moms, and they describe current relationships as co-parenting roommate, which I get it. We have been through 3 years. And at this point, we have gone from roommate, couple, roommate, couple. The days that we actually get sleep, it actually feels like we are husband and wife. And the days that you don't, it just doesn't. So we're going to chat about all of this today, that experience and others, and how you can actually improve your health by improving your relationship. So let me, without further ado, introduce Kim. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself, or tell everybody else a little bit about you?
All right, and you give such a wonderful introduction. I think you covered all the key points. So yes, I am a mom as well. I have 3 boys. At the moment they are 12, 10, and 7. So
Ooh.
home today, and I've fed them. I hope they stay fed. Don't prepare to complain about something, which is often, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And yes, that whole co-parenting time, because let's be real, right? If kids take us up. You have your furry child. They do that, right? So my I find that what happens is that we get to that point in our relationships when we have our small children, especially, where our days are just about them.
Yeah.
It is almost inevitable because of the fact that they need that care, they need that constant attention, and it's easy. And as a couple, especially in the beginning, we don't begrudge each other that. We don't necessarily miss each other as yet because we're so consumed in the realities of having newborns, having toddlers. But here's the thing, at some point, that can lapse into complacency. And that's where the issues start to come in. And this is what I know for us, we're going to be talking more around families where there are slightly older children, but at the same time, I kind of want to let, even those with newborns know, you have to make time for your relationship. You have to take that pause. And if you have access to trusted babysitters, then take advantage, especially if they're like parents or close family that you can rely on. Please do so. And I was a breastfeeding mom, and I literally used to, my mom would come over and we would time it, like nurse the baby, head out, be back. So we had to know how far away the place was, how long we'd be there, when we'd be back with the next feed. It is what it is. But I can tell you that like 1 hour out of the house, or 1.5 hours out of the house, were fantastic. And I got to feel like a person again and not just somebody's meal ticket. Literally.
Right. We did not get to go out of our house because we live 3.5 hours away from my husband's family, but then my family is a 4-hour flight. So we didn't really have anybody up here, and we got to finally go on a date. Plus, it was COVID, so
God, that's a whole different,
yeah. They were born in June of 2020, so really there were a lot of factors there, but we didn't trust somebody to watch them until they were almost 2.
Right.
We actually did not have a date until they were almost 2. I think it was about a month or 2 before their second birthday is when we finally got to just go out somewhere, just us, and not have to worry about the kids, just because nobody was here. So even putting them to sleep and going out wasn't a possibility. And we've always connected with knowing that this is a short time, but it's affected us. Our health has been affected each individually.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, older kids or not, and that is excellent advice, because the minute we started being able to go out and just have it be the two of us, without kids, it has made a tremendous effect. I mean, the improvements that both of us have seen, you know, in our skin, in our eyes, and in the light of like what we are motivated to do day in and day out.
Exactly. And like, you know, this is in no way, shape, or form meant to belittle the value that children bring to us. It's not meant to say like, it's not meant to say that your relationship is somehow more important. And I'm going to be very careful how I phrase this, because yes, actually, you do need to put your spouse before your kids, from the perspective of you're doing it for them. You are modeling a healthy relationship for them. You are creating that stable, healthy, loving environment for them. You can achieve that by making each other a priority, even over your kids, because you are raising people who are going to become young adults, who are going to be productive, accountable citizens, and they need to leave you and go start their own family. They're not going to turn around and say, I'm so thankful you put me above my mother or above my father. That's it. If that's what you're waiting to happen, there's a little dysfunction happening there. Okay? So, yes, we have to take care of them. We love them. We want what's best for them. But this is also part of what's best for them.
Yeah. Right. We had heard that before we got pregnant, and we had tried for a very long time to get pregnant. And we had also waited a long time to find that person that we were comfortable, that we trusted enough to not only marry, but have children with.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and we always considered it as, if we have kids, we're raising productive children, you know, kids that care not only about themselves, but about their relationship. So we had heard that the best way to do that is prioritize each other. And it's the whole, if you take care of you first, then you can take care of them better. And it's modeling better behavior and, you know, healthy, happy relationships, which neither one of us really, I mean, we got glimpses of those, but it wasn't really something that was a constant in either one of our worlds.
Right, right.
You know, so to be able to provide that without having that ourselves is, and it's a challenge. It's not something that, you know, we unconsciously think, okay, we are each other's priority. If you asked us, we would say the kids.
Right. Exactly. And that's perfectly fine. And you know what you're working towards, right? I mean, your kids are still very little. Your kids are still they take a physical toll on your day.
Yeah.
I think that is something that we need to acknowledge. When your kid's taking a physical toll on your day, it's a slightly different game you're playing at that point. The scheduling becomes really important. And now I remember I was speaking to a client a while, you know, early days. And one of the things that we had talked around was intimacy and having a baby that was less than a year old. And then, you know, it came down to like, well, maybe you need to start scheduling intimate time together, because it is important and you can't wait until the end of the day. And those of us who had to put a young baby to bed, you knew you're lying there in the dark and you're like, I'm going to get right up as soon as they knock out. And yeah, you know, and it's tomorrow morning when you get out of it. Right. So it doesn't always happen that way. So the scheduling becomes important. And one of the things that she had, her block against the scheduling was because they had been trying, they had done the fertility treatments, and it was, but but this is just like a flashback to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you did have to talk around. Now, remember when you were doing that, you had to be on it. That was a different kind of schedule.
Yeah.
Like this now is you don't, there's no temperature to check. There's no ovulation to check. This is just, let's do it. I'm free on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Let's get it in the calendar. And again, now you're doing it for fun. You're not doing this with a particular. You're not going to be disappointed at the end of the month.
Right.
What you were expecting didn't happen. But this is again you creating that environment to build that intimacy and closeness with your partner that's going to benefit this young baby that you've just spent all of this time and all of these hopes and prayers getting. So let's now make sure you're providing that stable home with them. This is part of it.
Yeah. That was a hard shift for us too, because so much was scheduled. And then, you're scheduling that time, but then at the same time, once you're in fertility, you're told this is when you can and this is when you can't.
Right.
So it creates these things, and especially with those of us that had longer durations of time where we were in fertility, we were trying, it inserts into the back of your brain. You have to let it go, and it's not easy. But you're right. And by focusing on fun, we were able to kind of shift that. But that was a tough one to overcome for us as well. So.
And we're going all over the place here.
I know.
It affects so many aspects of our lives, right? And
yeah.
What factors then affect it as well.
Yes. With that, I mean, so one of the things that you and I had talked about was you had mentioned something I remember distinctly hearing, that men in healthier relationships are happier and live longer.
Yes. So I know we had a good chuckle over it. No, and it makes total sense, right? But I'll tell you why specifically for men. So the study was that men who were happily married tend to outlive men who were single or men who were unhappily married. Okay? And then we'll talk about the whole unhappy part in a relationship. But it boils down to practicality too, right? One of the things that happily married men had going for them was a partner who looked out for them. And so there are other statistics and other studies that will show, not to every man, of course, that men are a little bit more lax in terms of minding their health, right? What they eat, when they go to the doctor, if they're taking their medications, they're a little bit less structured sometimes than women are and dedicated to the process, right? So, but for the men who had happy partners, their partners helped them stay accountable to their health goals, sometimes had to make their doctor's appointments, and generally helped provide that space where they were accountable and happy. And that is what led to the increased life expectancies. And I mean, we can also look at it the other way as well, from the perspective of, if you are in an unhealthy relationship, think of your mental state and how is that going to play out now on your health. So now there are other studies that will show for people who will say that they are in an unhappy or a toxic relationship, their health takes a negative hit because of that. Okay? And again, we come back to the issues of lack of motivation to take care of yourself. And I mean, Bonnie, you might know more on this front, the how your immune system reacts when you're in a depressed state, in which case you find it much more difficult to fight off diseases, from the common cold to something more serious. So that is where the intersection between the health and your relationships. And I think that, and the reverse is true. When you are suffering from poor health and you're so preoccupied with the daily struggles of from any conditions really, that can become the number one thing you wake up thinking, you go to bed thinking, and you're worried constantly.
Yes. Yes.
And what's left over to share with your family and your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. I read that with the people I work with, and, I focus mostly on gut health and autoimmune conditions. And when your health is taking a hit from the inside out, it starts to hit you emotionally. So that impacts your immune system, because when you're stressed, and emotions trigger stress responses. It's a biochemical reaction. It's not anything that we can control, but stress and emotions, they equally will trigger that response. And with autoimmune, it's kind of like when you feel like crap, everything else is crap.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
It affects your relationships. It affects your perception of what's happening. So you could have a great, supportive, very loving partner, but your perception might not be what's reality.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That's a very important point, that how we are perceiving our partners depending on what we are going through. And again, why it's important to have that whole sense of self-care and self-validation. And because when we don't have that, we really are filtering through a very negative lens. And I'm trying to, I know I had a specific example in mind. It's just kind of jumping out of my memory. I have to write these things down. But it's like, okay, I'll use an example that I've been using a lot recently when I talk to, women in terms of like, their partner being supported in their businesses and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's that it still comes down to, sometimes you have tunnel vision. I am feeling this particular way and I want my partner to do this specific thing. And if they don't do that specific thing or say this specific thing, then they're not being supported. But yet there's your partner doing other things that are being supportive. And you're just like, yeah, no, I have to support him. But that's not true. But because you're so tunnel visioned into that one aspect of what you're looking for, you're totally missing the other things. So, and it's the same thing when, when you about how you feel and how everything else comes back at you. Compliments, actually, that was the one I wanted to talk about. When you feel like crap about yourself and your partner is complimenting you, are you able to receive those compliments? Are you just brushing them off? Right. And you don't believe them, or you're thinking, oh, they're only saying that because they want to get lucky later tonight. Well, that's maybe part of it too, but that's not.
But and there's times too. There's studies that have shown that in extreme emotional trauma or extreme emotional states, you're not actually hearing what they're saying. You're hearing what you think they're saying. So the words coming out of their mouth could actually be completely different from what you heard.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So all related.
Yeah, it's a complete circle. It's part of the reason I really was so thrilled that you wanted to come on with me, because we don't think about our relationships as having such a toll on our health. But in reality, it's all cyclical. Everything is connected. The food that we eat triggers either healthy, happy, or depressed, sluggish, exhausted. And each of those contribute to how you interact with the people around you.
Exactly. Oh, yes. Because if you are lethargic and sluggish, how are you having fun in your daily life?
Right.
And that, I think we underestimate the value of that word fun. We underestimate having it. We think it's something for children or something that sounds immature. And it's not. You should be having fun with your partner. You just should be, because otherwise, I'm not going to say what's the point, but
basically, what's the point?
with this person, it just feels like you're carrying around a dead weight. Then why care?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying go cut the dead weight off, by the way. No. Evaluate first of all, if you need to inject some energy back into this relationship, and how can you do it? But fun brings out the excitement, it brings out the curiosity, it brings out the lightness in you.
Yes.
These are the things that help us build those special connections. And I would say, I'm not telling you that you have to go have fun every 5 minutes of the day, but those are the moments that when things are going bad, you want to be like, but look at that. When we do this, we enjoy each other. And then that gives you a roadmap as into these are the things that we should do that help us feel connected. So we have to do more of it.
Yes.
And there's one more point on that too. It's all about the 5-to-1 ratio. Now, I'm not sure if this is like scientifically proven, but I have read this ratio in so many like psychology magazines and psychology and articles, and I've heard it on podcasts. You want to have 5 positive interactions for every negative interaction to have a healthy, sustainable relationship, right? So having fun is part of that, and giving yourself that huge bank of good interactions to fall back on for every time you have a bad one. Right.
Oh, okay. In my brain, every negative thing will lead back to, well, I'm just done.
Yeah.
It has been that way forever. I'm just done. But then the very next thought is, well, and if there are enough positives that have happened, especially recently, then it's very difficult to justify that initial reaction.
Exactly. And then as you bring awareness to it, then you can recognize over and over again, yes, my initial reaction is to be like, it's just done. But when I sit and I think about it, I realize we have much more going for us. And sometimes it's a pain in the butt when you have to talk to yourself like that.
Yeah, especially when you're angry.
What a wallow. But you know what? Have your moment. Release all of that negativity. Don't try to stuff it back in. Just release it all.
Yep.
Time yourself if you have to, then get back to doing the good things or the necessary things.
Yeah. I follow someone, and what she calls that moment is swamping. Up to the swamp. You let yourself swamp for a while and then come back. Don't stay there because the muck will get you stuck. But come back when you're done swamping and leave all your gunk with the muck.
I love that. Yeah, it happens. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in that space, and I'm like coaching myself through it. I'm like, you're being dramatic. You're being ridiculous. There's no reason to feel like this. He didn't mean it that way. Why you're interpreting it that way because you have your own insecurities. And I'm just like, shut up, Kim. I don't want to talk to me right now.
Yeah. Yes.
But listen, the reality is, a couple years ago, I would have been in that mood for about 2 days. Now this was just a couple hours, and then I was, almost back to normal.
Yeah. Once we figure out what helps us and what keeps us on track for what we want for our lives, it's much easier. But it takes time, and like we recently have reached a point where, knock on some serious wood here, because if I just jinx myself, I'm just gonna go find sleeping pills for 3-year-olds. They have finally started sleeping 5 out of 7 nights throughout the night. And the more sleep we get consistently, the easier it is to take that whole process, that self-talk process, from days to just an hour or 2 hours, or, even a few minutes.
Yeah.
And we had talked about blood sugar.
Yes. When you said it, I'm like,
Yeah. How blood sugar really impacts, and how stable your blood sugar is. It really impacts how you're able to respond in those moments, and how you're able to identify, where you should. Well, for me, it's what I teach. It's where you can identify, where you can choose consciously or subconsciously the healthier decision.
Right. Right. Oh, the healthier way to speak to your partner in that moment when you're
Yes.
So, yeah. And I mean, we joke about it, but I don't think anybody will disagree that hungry is a mood. And I mean, the scientific thing behind it is the low blood sugar and the increased irritability and the low tolerance. So, again, a study, right? So this, and I keep telling you, I have to go back and find the link and send it to you.
Yes.
So what they did is they gave couples little dolls that were supposed to resemble like each other, right? And so when yes, and so what they would do is purposely delay their meal times to get them to that state of low blood sugar, the hungry mood, and kind of have conversations with each other and see the heightened emotions, and then they could use the doll to take out their frustration with their partner, their frustration level on the doll. And they found like without variation, with you had the lowest blood sugar, I guess the violence towards the doll was at its highest level.
Well, I will tell you, my husband, one of the very first things that my friends and my sister told him was, make sure you feed her. If you hit 4 hours and she has not eaten, we are not responsible.
No, exactly. My husband calls me friendly when fed.
Yes, that's a great phrase.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, I have this conversation mostly with women, and I don't know if women get impacted by it more. I don't know. Do women suffer more from low blood sugar?
Not really. Is we get a bad rep, to be quite frank. My husband does as well. But until he and I met, and I was like, "Oh, you are hangry," every time it happened, and I told him, "You have to eat." Sorry, supposed to be on Do Not Disturb. Max.
Never helps.
But he gets hangry as well. And then he met me, and I was able to identify that he didn't correlate the two. And there aren't really studies that show that men are more susceptible or women are more susceptible. Humans are susceptible.
Just like, how do you cut?
Right. And I get asked a lot is or the question I get asked a lot is, well, does that mean you have to eat every couple of hours? No, everybody's different. You need something that's going to work for you. Some of you work with intermittent fasting well. Some of you have to eat every few hours. I have to eat every few hours. Yeah. And I can do intermittent fasting. I just have to make sure I get my calories in.
Exactly. It depends on the person, and perhaps the only thing that can help in this situation is to recognize that is what you're feeling, that your increased level of irritability is not actually because of your partner, right? It's because of your current. And you can even say that. Like this morning I read something and I'm like, that's a great line to use. And whether it's because you are hungry or just because you're having an off day, it's a very simple line that I think even in most general conversation you can throw it. It's not you. I am so irritable today. Everything is annoying me. And like you immediately let the person know that you are probably going to snap at them, but you have taken the sting out of it, and they know they aren't being personally attacked. You're just in a mood.
Yep.
I thought that was great, only because I've been reading so many wonderful things, but I'm like, people don't speak like that on a general basis. So I'm like, I keep trying to like rephrase some of these wonderful theories into like actual usable language. But I thought that one was simple enough. Like,
Yes.
I am very irritable today, and you take the blame immediately. I am very irritable today. I don't know why. Everything is annoying me. So, that's
Yeah. We use the phrase "I'm having a day."
right.
You can put a word. So like Brian calls it fragile days, when I'm emotional and everything in the world is making me cry.
Right.
So when I know I'm having a day like that, it's I'm having a fragile day. Or if I just say I'm having a day with a tone, he knows that that's going to be, for whatever reason, I'm going to be irritable, and there's nothing personal.
That's
It just is what it is.
Exactly. Promised you. I'm not even going to remember what I told you.
Yep. And I won't, 9 times out of 10, I don't even remember how I act. I don't see it as me acting any differently.
That is it. Exactly. And again, this is why it's also important to have the 5-to-1 ratio. So when you have those days and those moods, it's just like, that's okay.
Yeah.
For a few hours, by tomorrow, she'll be back to herself.
Exactly. Exactly. It allows you to not respond from an emotional hurt place, because that, when one person is irritable, it could be for a number of reasons, but when they're irritable, that response can either escalate or let it be what it's going to be.
Exactly. If the other person gets defensive, or worse yet, if they want to attack back,
Right.
It's a whole different place.
Yes. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Whole slew of things.
Eat when you're hungry.
Yep. I always tell people that there is a triad of health. It's not just nutrition, fitness. It's mind, body, and spirit. And each one of those has emotions within it. There are physical elements you have to take care of. But it's not just that. All of our triangles are connected. We have all these circles, and everything is energetically connected. So we feed off of each other. And especially when we're so close and we're in that intimate relationship, what you do impacts the other person. And what you don't want to do is have that negatively impact, but then now it's bounded back to you, and all you've got is a tennis match.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's exciting. We need to be intentional in all of these areas.
Yeah. You and I talked about prioritizing your health and your relationships, and that to me feels like where we're going with all of this is really setting that intention to put your relationships and your health at the top of the list.
Exactly. I mean, I imagine for most of you guys who are listening to this right now, you don't have hours a day just to think about what you want to do. You've got stuff doing. You're working. You have kids. You may have hobbies that are taking up time. Family commitments beyond your kids. Older parents. There's a whole bunch of things that take up time in our days, right? And if you are like many other of us, you live by your daily schedule. It has to get written down so that it will get done. So, time with your partner needs to get written down. Planning your meals needs to get written down, because that's the other thing. And I'm sure, Bonnie, you talk about that too. If you wait till you're hungry to figure out what you're going to eat, well, then that's the absolute worst time.
It is.
So, the same thing with your relationship. If you're waiting until you're arguing or worse, if you're waiting until every time you're in the argument to be trying to find the solution, well, how can you? No, you can't. You're not going to find the solution while you're having the same argument you're always having.
Yeah.
So it's, yes, be intentional. Set those separate times to think about all the different aspects of your life and how you can make the small improvements. Schedule your date nights or schedule your 5-10 minutes. I would say you don't have time for date night. That's okay. Depends on your time of life. But what maybe you can do is schedule 10 minutes where the two of you sit and you plan how you can work out having a date night. And just that 10 minutes of like, let's do this. You know what you're showing is that you're working together. You're like, wow, we are committed to getting to that other space. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
10 minutes to watch a couple of YouTube clips even or a couple of TikTok videos that like I'm just saying, you're just little ways you grab onto each other during your day. And if you have to put it in your calendar from 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., this is what we're doing, then do it.
Yeah. It makes a difference. One of the things that we started to do, because when we first started having date nights, I will never forget the first day. We get in the car and we're like, oh, where are we going to go? Because before the kids, it was get in the car and go somewhere, right? There, you have these places you like to go, so you just get and go. Well, since then, we have moved to the complete opposite side of Dallas, so we don't know where anything is.
Oh my gosh.
We don't know what's open at 8:30 because we waited until the boys were definitely asleep before we left because I was panicking. And had no idea. So we ended up driving around for an hour before we decided, okay, we're going to go here and sit down. And from that point forward, we decided we needed to just make a list.
There you go.
So that when we plan date nights, if it's a last minute, let's see if someone's available and it's Friday and we're looking at going out on Saturday, if we can get somebody in, then we have a list of where we can go and want to go.
Yeah.
And it really has helped just to have something written down that we did when we weren't even thinking about date night. Because I swear, you tell us that we get to go out somewhere, and all of a sudden, both of our brains go, nothing's around, right? Yes, Dallas. I mean,
and that's it. Or you might just have the one place you fall back on every time because your brain can't think beyond that.
Yes.
Variety. So that's a brilliant idea. Now, another one I know some couples do, they have a date jar and they have different ideas in it. And I get, but I mean, what you said makes sense. You have like the spur of the moment ones, you have the ones that take a little bit more time. But yeah, there was a date jar, you can't dip your hand and you pull out the thing and it's like, oh, okay, all right, let's go do that.
Yeah, let's do that. There's all these new restaurants popping up. And that's one of the things that we've always loved to do is go check out the new places, and craft beers and craft cocktails, things like that. So it's wonderful. San Diego, Southern California for 10 years where like craft beers and microbreweries and nano breweries were a thing. Like you would just pull up to some warehouse or tiny little storage shed and here's your beer. Now it's made its way to Dallas. So, that was always our thing. And now when we see those things popping up as like on Facebook or wherever that something new has happened, it automatically gets put on the list.
Right. Perfect. Oh, and you can add to that something you can do, like for whatever is your nearest city, you subscribe to, many of the communities have their newsletters with new events, so that you subscribe to it. So you are constantly being made aware of what events are happening that might be out of your normal, that you can take advantage of it.
Yes.
And if you're complaining that your husband doesn't take you out enough, well, sign him up within this.
Yeah. Mine knows I like to be in control and I like to plan. I don't plan all the time nowadays, but that's what he's come to know. So he likes the fact that he can just put things on a list. And if the other person sees something and they're like, nah, I don't really want to do that. Usually there's like a line crossed out or there's a color on it.
Right.
Or we remember we can do in Google Drive. Um, and then we know, okay, this is not something for us to do together. This is something for us to do, like maybe just with the boys or, whatever, with friends, something like that. But it's really helped because when it's just like health. It's just like the meal planning. When you tell somebody, hey, we're going to go to this new restaurant, but you're trying to avoid certain foods because they've been making you sick, you have two options. You can just go, or you can look them up on the internet real quick,
Right.
see what the menu looks like, and then you can go.
Right.
It's
Yes.
the same thing with our date night list. Is we've been able to make the priority, and if there's things that we need to talk about, we actually that's another file.
Wild. Yeah, that is.
Because we have literally done the like, hey, we need to talk later when the boys go to bed, and then that moment comes and
Remember? No.
I don't know. And it happens, especially with the young ones. I don't want them to grow too fast, but I'm looking for that moment when, they're a little bit older, they're a little bit more independent, and things aren't lost so quickly. I don't know how else to say that. Because it's a challenge trying to pay attention to your health and your relationship and everything else. But and I'm sure you teach this as well, is when you get those moments where you can put some steps into place to make it easier, then it doesn't feel like so much work.
Exactly. And that's why it's all about the small things that you can do and the small actions that you can take to keep things moving forward all the time. Yeah.
So I always ask everybody for one or two last tips, just things that people should pay attention to their day-to-day life, that would help prioritize relationships and their health, and really just make their relationships healthier so that they're happier.
Exactly. One of the things that I would advise for that, it's those intentional connections. So I know we talked a little bit about, date night or even like planning for your date night, but I really wasn't joking about just those like 10-minute check-ins every day. You might say that, your days are busy, but you can find 10 minutes. And even if you're zoning out in front of the television, it's to not be in two separate chairs doing that. It's sitting together, holding hands, some sort of, eye contact at some point during that time. It's that idea of being there for each other in a small way as often as possible. So yes, we want to get you to the point where you're having the big date nights on a regular basis where you're having fun, but more importantly, every day making the effort, taking the actions to have small connections, because it makes even having hard conversations easier because you have that bond that's ticking and vibrant, and you have enough grace between each other to withstand the difficult conversations.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. So one last question for you. Where can everybody find you? And do you have anything on board right now that they could take advantage of?
Sure. So there is a Facebook group that I have. It's called Moms, Marriage and Relationships. And you don't actually have to be a mom as yet. You could just be interested in getting those day-to-day relationship tips that you can implement. And I do have an email challenge that one is a paid product. It is literally 20 days of emails where each day you get an action item, and it's meant to take you a short amount of time, but it's something that brings you closer to your partner. It's an action that you can do, whether it's around self-worth and self-validation or around showing appreciation and compassion for your partner. And we hope by the end of the 20 days, and it's actually 20 working days. So weekends, you get time to reflect on what you've done for the week. By the end of the month, hopefully you are in a space of being more proactive in rebuilding that spark.
That's a great tool. I love that. I remember hearing about that and I was like, yes, we need to get that out there. Especially the weekends off. That is huge. I will definitely put all of your links below, so people can come find you and come chat with you. I love talking to you all the time. This is so much fun. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for coming on to Healthy in a Wild World. To everybody else, have a great time. I hope you learned a little bit and you can take a few nuggets away. Until next time, cheers.